They nerf Scarlet Enclave to the ground, and you might think I can predict the future because I told you this was gonna happen, but no, there is this thing called pattern recognition. They do this every freaking tier. Now this tier was a bit notorious for being overtuned as hell, in my opinion intentionally, so they can then nerf it to the ground and create the illusion that you are progressing when it is not really progression. The raid was too hard, now it's easy and you clear it. That is not progression, but that's what they want you to believe, to feel. Regardless, there is a post and a very juicy follow-up we gotta take a look at. This is from Agrend, the game producer himself, to clarify that they are not the only adjustments we planned this week. The adjustments detailed in the post earlier this evening are already live as of today, but the remainder of the adjustments we planned, but we are ready and waiting for deployment. Okay, so I am not gonna bore you with the details because chances are you are not raiding this anymore, but Solistraza got nerfed her HP by 15%, the Reborn Council and Caldoran have all their ads reduced their HP by 10%. The ads were always a huge DPS check, a very unreasonable DPS check that you could hardly believe they thought that 20 people could do it. 40 people had a hard time clearing those ads. Lilian Boss enraged timer increased from 3 minutes to 4 minutes. Beatrix Trash HP lowered by 20%. We will continue to monitor performance in this next week's reset and make additional adjustments as needed. Now this is actually on top of other nerfs, because they have been consistently nerfing the raid ever since it came out, and I would say right now the raid is probably 30% weaker than it was at launch. Something like that. That's still kinda wacky, right? Like 30% in 2 weeks. We are gonna see where this ends up because they said they are gonna put a buff on you like ICC. You know how you get every week a little stronger, and that makes the raid even easier. So I expect in 2 weeks this is gonna be an extremely trivial content. Oh boy, I guess we must have progressed really well, guys. But this is actually not the main subject of this video, because something happened, okay? What do I tell you when you want a change done in the game, okay? What do I always tell you? You gotta complain on Twitter. Well, Agren went to Blue Sky due to reasons, and somebody that I happen to know talked to him. Hello Jaytelo himself, the Paladin God. He did not agree with the nerfs. Now you might think that's crazy, why wouldn't you agree with the nerfs? Well, that is not a rare position to take in this entire debate. There is a lot of people that are not happy with the nerfs. They would like the raid to be really hard. I would say everybody, from people that wanted nerf to people that don't, are not happy about the entire approach of making it hard as hell for no reason and then nerfing it. Like, I think both sides of the argument do not like that happening. But he said, I understand why the nerfs are needed, especially for 20 man, however in a month or so, maybe even less, when people start getting out, folks are gonna complain about content feeling lackluster and it feels too easy. Please ignore them if they do. Thank you. And there he makes a clarification. One of the big things that was making 20 man too hard was the enraged timers, guys. As you guys know, the raid is supposed to be cleared on 20 people, but even decent 40 man raids are having a hard time making the boss, killing the boss with enough damage before the enraged timer. That's how overtuned the raid was. So he adds to that a little clarification. I feel the extended enraged timers are really nice, also giving people time to progress and figure out plans for a raid is healthy for the SOD scene. It just feels like folks are gonna take advantage of these changes without actually knowing the power of their new gear. He's trying to state that people are gonna want even more nerfs after this, but that would be too far because people are gonna have 40% more power. That's what Agren said about when you get all the gear, you're gonna be 40% stronger. So the nerfs are gonna completely trivialize the game to hell, which it will, and that's the plan. He made no unambiguous statement about it. He said himself, we're gonna put a buff like ICC and we're gonna completely make the raid way easier over time. Like, that's his words, not mine. Like, it is very clear, it is very transparent that they intended to nerf the raid to the ground eventually. I do not know if Telo was aware of this, but regardless, I can completely see where he's coming from as somebody that actually cares, because I stopped caring. That's what they made me do. So Agrend replies to this Telo post of please do not nerf the raid more, and he says, being honest, a lot of 20-man guilds are gonna go in this week and they will still probably hit a bit of a wall. It is not quite so impossible of a wall to incrementally progress anymore. I am very certain we'll be asked soon for more nerfs beyond this, but it is a super fair complaint that the guilds that are doing it in the right way feel crappy watching other guilds that just take 30 or 40 people and kill it. Okay, he's still mad about when people made him go back to 40 men. Like, I'm gonna give you a little bit of context here. When AQ40 was on the PTR, they decided to limit the amount of people you could take to 25. When it was established that you could go to Molten Core or Black Wingler and take 40 people if you wanted, and that was like, in a way, the difficulty slider. That was the real difficulty mode that people had installed, right? They tried to change that, the community absolutely rioted, the Twitter caught on fire, and they were forced to go back to 40-man raiding. And this, to me, this betrays a bit of a revanchism. How would you say it? They are not happy about going back to 40 men. But in a way, you can understand their pain, so to speak. Like, they are forced to tune the raid in a way that is not completely trivial for 40 people, but that is still doable for 20 people. That's pretty much impossible, right? Now, if it were up to me, I would release the raid in the state they intended it in the first place to be, instead of overtuning it and nerfing it later, and that would be the end of it. And if it's too easy for 40 men, it is too easy for 40 men. That's up to the community to decide, and that's fine. You take half the loot when you're in 40 men, so it's not like it's free. Trying to manage some expectations, if you were killing hard mode 2 or 3 Nax Ramas for only 2 months, then Scarlet Enclave is gonna be a really tough challenge for you, and you may need to change things up. If you were clearing hard mode 4 consistently, it hopefully feels like a more natural progression from hard mode for Saphiron and Kel to Sad now. I do not know if he means that in a difficulty sense or in a gear level sense. I think it is the former. To your point, though, he's talking to Telo, we do not want to hold the line and keep a challenge. This is the sort of the pinnacle of raiding in SOD, and it wouldn't feel right if we nerfed it to the point where you could walk over it, and today's nerfs are still not that. If you cleared it in week 1, yes, it will be easier now, but that crowd is a fraction of the player base. To my estimation, about 40 guilds, was it, that cleared it in the first week? That's 40 times 20. Was that 800 people? I mean, to be fair, like, they got 80,000 raiders, 70,000 actually, so it's more than 1%. It's not an insignificant number, lamentably. We can't exclusively design for them any more than we can exclusively design for the bottom percent either. I am looking forward in going with my mid-core guilds this week and making some good satisfying progress, but still not full clearing. So he's saying we cannot tune it for the bottom 1% or the top 1%, which is something I can completely understand. That's what people have been complaining about retail for the longest time, that they seem to make the mythic raids for the top 0.2% of the player base, you know, like Method and, well, Method not anymore, I guess, rest in peace, but Limit and like 2 more guilds, and those 3 guilds decide, well, they don't, but like Blizzard makes the raids for them, and those 3 guilds are apparently the bar that the raid should be made for, and that's stupid. Okay, so I agree with that. Let's hope they actually believe it instead of saying it. Then Telo goes on, I want to thank you for the full reply. I understand your meaning behind the decisions in the Scarlet Enclave, accessible to all players and to enjoy it, since we are making it the final frontier of SOD raiding, because it's the end, right? I have faith in the future of where we go with the team, continuing with the transparency and being open with the SOD player base on why such decisions continued to be made for the better overall health of this beloved version of WoW. I have passion for the game, and I want to see people enjoy, embrace, and work with others to overcome the toughest of challenges the phase brings. Thank you again. Now, Telo has a much bigger say. I'm gonna be honest, he has a much bigger say on what should happen to SOD than me, because he actually plays SOD regularly. He is progressing. Actually, I think he cleared it already, which would make him like a top 3% player in the world right now, because it's like, what, 60 guilds? guilds? I don't even know anymore. It's not a lot of guilds. Maybe this reset is gonna be a lot more. Now, I could say I appreciate communication, because I do. I think Ion Hasikostas got tired of getting defensive about his decisions, and he just started hiding from the community. There is no way you can reach, in retail for example, right? You cannot reach Ion Hasikostas and talk about a change. So I do not take for granted having Agrend on Twitter all day. Well, Blue Sky now, I guess. But let me tell you something, and I hope people are not mixing this up. Just because you can explain a change away, it doesn't mean it is a good change. Just because Ion Hasikostas could pull up 20 different statistics of why people needed Titan Forging in the game, it doesn't mean Titan Forging is a good thing for the game. So even though communication is important, communication doesn't replace good design. Let's make that very clear. I made my opinion on the raid and I will make it again. I am okay with them making the raid really hard the first week. That is not for my sake, that is for publicity's sake. If you make progression hard, all the top guilds are going to be progressing on Twitch, and that's going to generate a lot of media attention, earned media, so to speak. And that's good for the game, and SOD doesn't have a marketing budget, let's be honest. So any marketing they can get for free is important, and that's a resource they should definitely take advantage of for the health of the game. Now, that doesn't mean they should make the raid hard the next week. I don't think they should. As a matter of fact, I think they should nerf it before the first lockout ends. Something like Sunken Temple, where it started impossible and then it got nerfed, and by the time we did it on Monday, it was pretty easy to do. We cleared it in about 4 hours. Even though Sunken Temple is a terrible raid and incursions kill the game, I thought the approach to Sunken Temple in terms of difficulty, they weren't too bad. But Agrend, like you can see his statements, right? He cares about progression this, progression that. We're gonna go there and we're not gonna clear, and we're gonna go there and we're not gonna clear. He's obsessed with making people progress through the raid. And the way that in their minds that they can create progression is to incrementally every week nerf the raid a little, so they kill one more boss and one more boss and one more boss. In my opinion, they are banking on people being too stupid to tell the difference between a nerf and real progression. And they are banking on people getting a satisfaction from killing a raid after it gets nerfed. I do not have any tinfoil with me, but I am fairly certain that this is what they are trying to do here. And it is not working. People quit. It's stupid. Because people are not stupid. People are mean. People got no idea what they are talking about. People go to Twitter and make comments just to inflammate, just to annoy the game developers. But they are not stupid. They can tell the difference if they go to a raid and they are not gonna go, oh gee, the boss died in half the time, I guess we do half more damage now, we are so much better. I guess this is an expensive lesson to learn, because that costed them the last phase of the game, which was expected to be a huge spike in player base, and those results didn't come true. But what I really hope, aside from anything else, is that they actually accept that they made a mistake. I don't care if they do not publicly acknowledge it, like that's not what matters. What matters is they do not do it freaking again, because this raid is already ruined. There is nothing they can do now, 3 weeks later, to fix the progression of this raid. The people that still care already cleared it. People are pretty patient. They are gonna give you a couple days on a broken raid and they are gonna tolerate it. But if by the last 2 days of the lockout the raid is not nerfed, that's a problem. But I think that people are stupid. Don't worry, because the top raiders of the game are doing all the work for you. This is what Simon Ice is telling his viewers. Do not bother with the Scarlet Enclave raid until it is nerfed. Simon Ice is not stupid. And even if his viewers were stupid, and they are not, they now know exactly what to expect. So no, you are not gonna fool people into thinking this is progression, and no, you are not gonna get people happy knowing that they were not allowed to raid when the raid was relevant, and they are only allowed to raid when they nerf it to the ground. That's stupid. And you think, oh, that's gonna get people to catch up. No, that's gonna get people to give up. They are gonna say, we're gonna come back in 2 weeks and try again, and they never come back. Because when a raid skips a lockout, you lose people. Every time you skip a lockout, you lose people. Why did we keep raiding through Sunken Temple even though Sunken Temple was terrible? But when phase 4 comes out, if you don't raid, you lose the roster. Giving people an excuse to not raid even once damages the population, and we're gonna see, I think, an even more violent fall-off after this. We're gonna see in a couple weeks. But what do you think? I am, for one, pretty disappointed. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.